In this video, I'm going to show you a 4-step graphic design system I call L.I.F.T, which is leverage points, internal rhythm, friction and flow, and transferability. And don't worry, this entire system will soon make sense, and it is a great system for you to bring into your workflow as a designer. Okay, let's break down how leverage points actually shows up on real designs, and more importantly, how you can start building them into your work. So take the Nike campaign here. This design has a clear leverage point, that is the model. That's what grabs your attention at first. Why? Well, because the designer used contrast, bright neon outlines, a misty background, and there's also scale at play here. The figure dominates the composition, and then there's the isolation. Nothing else in this layout competes, that is apart from the neon green logo, which acts as the leverage point of this smaller proximity group in the lower left. This design knows exactly what it wants you to see first, and it makes sure nothing else gets in the way. That's leverage, that is control. Now compare that to this poster. It's more complex, but it still uses leverage really well. The artist's face is the focal point, and it's not just because it's centered, it's the largest element in frame. And that's surrounded by softer floral shapes that actually help draw your eye into it. The rest of the elements, the text, the overlays, the graphic details, they all sit back and support the main point. Even though there's more going on visually speaking, the hierarchy is still clear. And that's what a good leverage point does. It leads the viewer, even on busy designs. And of course, a design can have multiple different leverage points depending on the brief. So how do we actually go about applying this into our graphic design workflow? Start by asking, what is the single most important thing on your layout? That's your leverage point. Now use design tools like scale, contrast, positioning, or isolation to make sure it dominates the design. Push back anything that competes with it. Use supporting elements to guide the eye towards it, not away from it. Now, if someone just glances at your design and there's no leverage, there's no focal point there, then you just have kind of visual noise. And a design needs clarity first and foremost, and everything leads thereon afterwards. Now that you've established a clear leverage point or points, the next step is internal rhythm, and that's the eye in the L.I.F.T system. And this is how you guide the eye through the layout from this first point. The bold title here acts as a strong visual anchor, immediately grabbing attention. And from there, the eye is pulled downwards toward the 3D object, and then across to the right hand side where secondary information and the call to action lives. This path isn't accidental, it's actually choreographed. The designer controls the eye's journey using consistent spacing, predictable alignment, and deliberate contrast. This is what we call eye choreography. It's a visual path built to guide, not to confuse. And look closely how the elements are grouped. We have navigation links that are evenly spaced and outlined. The supporting stats and the feature list are tight and structured, while the 3D object sits centrally, breaking symmetry in a controlled way to create energy. This balance between consistency and surprise keeps the viewer engaged. Predictable spacing builds trust. When margins and gutters are consistent, this actually relaxes your brain and it starts to absorb the message more easily. But a well-placed disruption, like the glowing call to action or dynamic 3D visual, actually re-engages attention. This rhythm, predictable with purposeful shifts, is what makes complex design feel effortless to navigate. And to apply this in your own work, start by asking, how does the eye move across my layout? Are there going to be jumps, or is it going to be smooth transitions? Are related elements visually grouped, and is your spacing consistent throughout? Use spacing and positioning to control the speed of engagement. Fast rhythm for skimmable, simple content, and slower rhythm for more deliberate flow to dense, complex layouts, often with lots of information. The goal is to make the journey feel natural, each step leading logically to the next. When rhythm is intentional, your design becomes more than just visuals. It actually becomes visual language with intention and an experience at their end. If you're anything like me, there are moments in your design process where you just need the right icon or right image and fast. And that's where the Noun project comes into play. The Noun project is one of the most extensive and diverse collection of icons you're going to find online, with millions available to download in both SVG and PNG formats. And what I really like about it is how intuitive and flexible it is. You can drag and drop icons straight into most apps, which makes the whole process feel seamless. It takes away that need to download, convert, and jump through different various hoops. Let's say I'm working on a pretty extensive layout project. I just head to the Noun project, search for what I need, and then put it straight onto my design. You can also customize icons right on the website itself. Things like change the color, the background, shapes, even download entire icon packs if you're using a Creator Pro account. And for anyone who works in Illustrator or PowerPoint, the SVG files are especially useful. You can recolor them natively and even adjust anchor points if you want more control. They've also added a photo library that's beautifully created and mission driven. It's not just stock content, it actually adds character to your work if used correctly. And if you want to explore this yourself, I've left a link in the description box below and it's definitely worth checking out. The third part of this system is friction and flow. This is where a lot of designs can break down because friction is often misunderstood. Friction in graphic design is tight spaces, jarring objects, uncomfortable typefaces, and is often seen as a negative thing by designers. But strategic friction is actually smart when you do it properly. So in this design, the friction is seen as the very tight spacing between the lines of text, the leading. It's the blurred out faces. It's the scribble across the face even. And we actually even have half of a word missing at the bottom here. But this friction on this design is entirely intentional, and it's not acting alone. But the flow is preserved by clearly defined zones, smooth reading sections like the mission statement below, versus more intense friction zones at the top that demand attention. That's a difference between good friction and bad friction. Good friction grabs the eye, and bad friction loses the message and causes unwanted discomfort. And to apply this onto your own designs, review your layout and ask, is this element adding clarity or just visual noise? Are there too many fonts, too many color choices, or multiple focal points competing all at once? Tighten spacing where it matters, but don't overload. And remove any decoration that isn't really doing a job. Friction is like seasoning, just enough adds some flavor and some depth, and too much will ruin the whole thing. The best designs use friction and flow together, one for emphasis and the other for ease. And the final step in this system is transferability. A great design doesn't just look good once, it works across every format, every size, every platform. If your design only works in one perfect setting, an ideal setting, then it's not a solution, it is a problem. This exhibit visual identity does a great job of maintaining consistency and energy across multiple different formats. Whether it's a large-scale hero poster or a smaller social post, the key elements remain intact. The bold contrast, the warped typography, the surreal portraits, and the recurring iconography and color scheme. Even when reduced in size, the hierarchy still holds true, and this central idea, the strange, compelling mood of the exhibit, still translates. And that's a sign of a scalable system. The layout flexes, but the identity still stays strong. And to apply this, or to think about this on your designs, test your designs actively. Shrink them down. Can you still read the type properly? Can you still recognize the visual identity? Try placing them on a dark and a light background. Do they hold up still then? Move them across formats. Do you think this design will work on mobile screens, a print flyer, motion graphic even? Great designs are scaled like great brand voices, clear, flexible, and instantly recognizable in any context. And transferability isn't about making a layout that just looks cool. It's about creating a design that lives everywhere the brand has to, and it still speaks the same language thereafter. Let's wrap up this system by looking at how this layout design brings the entire L.I.F.T system to life. So the moment the design loads, your eye goes straight to the bold orange band in the center of the design. And that's not by chance, it's deliberate, it's a leverage point. The use of a strong color contrast, central alignment, and subtle motion creates a focal point that leads the entire composition. It's literally saying start here without needing to shout. And yes, that subtle amount of motion graphics does elevate this leverage point quite a lot. Now follow the eye movement. After you lock onto the center, you're pulled gently outwards by the spacing and symmetry. The supporting type, these small animated elements, they're not just placed, they are paced and they are intentional. You'll find repetition in margin size, even rhythm between motion and stillness. This layout breathes in steady tempo. That's internal rhythm, building trust by creating visual predictability. That is while keeping the flow engaging. But here's where it gets smart. The band graphics ever so slightly overlapped by some typography. And also if you look at the text in the top right, it's laid out in a very non-uniform way. This is your friction, but where is the flow? Well, there's intensity in the center, but the outer space gives your eye time to breathe. That's the balance right there. It's the friction to wake up the viewer and then the flow to guide them through. And you do need both to different degrees on a design depending on the brief. Too much tension creates chaos, and too much smoothness creates boredom. And this layout knows when to push and when to let go. And so the last part, transferability. If we shrink this design down to thumbnail size, the orange band will still hold. The identity, the hierarchy, the balance, it all survives. Whether this runs on a mobile ad, Instagram story, or full width hero banner, the core message stays intact. But importantly, the concept of the design is so strong that the visual language can be taken to different platforms, rearranged, even made more minimal, and you still recognize it as being linked to this design. This is how the L.I.F.T system considers slightly more advanced areas of layout design, and why you should be considering it on your next project. And if you want to keep your educational journey moving forward, then just click that video on screen to learn more skills as a graphic designer. And until next time guys, design your future today. Peace.